Welcome, everyone. Steve Wyss here, joined by Kevin Harper, latest all sports betting podcast, T20 cricket previews. And we're on to the final group games now of Group A. First of all, recap for the last couple of days on Monday and Tuesday. Well, Monday was very, very strong for us. Not quite so good on Tuesday, Kev, but it was salvageable. So take us through the last couple of days from your point of view.
Tuesday and Wednesday, Steve. I know it's confusing with Australia and
Oh
England
man, I'm getting all sorts
and
of
everything else.
Tuesday and Wednesday.
I'm getting there as well. Yeah, no, Tuesday really good, wasn't it? 3 main bets that we had on Tuesday, they all won. We lost with a couple of play markets. I'll tell you what, at one point, Dushmanta Chamira was looking like he was going to absolutely run through the UAE and sneak that man of the match market. Wasn't to be, and unfortunately David Wyss came in too late for Namibia, but thankfully the person who top scored in that we was on his performance anyway, so that was all good. Not so good on Wednesday, must admit. I expected a lot more from too many teams on Wednesday, really. Very annoying that Ireland got going far too late in their innings to scupper that match bet. Obviously, West Indies didn't get going with the bat, but we salvaged some pride with Jason Holder's performance, and Scotland is still top of the group. And as we'll come to later in the week, the forecast on Friday for that group is terrible. So that could be extremely significant, the fact they're still top of the group. Obviously, it's annoying that Ireland beat Scotland. Just one partnership, really. If Scotland had got through that, you'd have fancied them. But that's T20 cricket. And sometimes things don't always go your way.
Yeah, I was disappointed in the West Indies especially. They just can't seem to fire with the bat right now fully. Expected majority of the sixes to be hit by them, but they only got 4, I think, which was very, very disappointing from that perspective. But sometimes you got to get out of the match alive, and we did with the Jason Holder performance, who continues to really nail it, especially with the ball. Anyway, moving on to Thursday's games, and they're from Geelong, and let's check up the weather forecast for this game, as always, and it's going to be good weather for this particular game. Kev, as you can see, thoughts on that?
Yeah, brilliant, isn't it? I mean, we mentioned earlier in the week when we covered this group that the forecast for Thursday was terrible, but you've mentioned all the way through that there's been good wind in that part of the world, and clearly it's blown all of the rain out of the way. So it's good that we've got a clear day, because this group is very nicely poised after them games on Tuesday.
Exactly that, and no rain, and we're going to get a conclusion here to the standings. Let's start with the first game then, Sri Lanka against Netherlands. And, Sri Lanka were very poor in the first match, but they rebounded excellently in the second game. What is their formula for this game? How do they qualify?
Just win, Steve. Yeah, knockout cricket. We're a mile away from official knockout cricket in this tournament. But as is often the case in these sort of mini group stages, we've got a knockout game here. It's quite simple, Steve, because Sri Lanka had done an absolute job on UAE on Tuesday. They got their run rate above the Netherlands. You got to look at the Netherlands and you're kind of thinking a little bit sorry for them. They've won both their games, but they lose here and they're out. And it's as simple as that. Well, sorry, they're not out, but they'd be relying on UAE to beat Namibia. And it's probably not a position that you want to be in. But ultimately, the Netherlands have had 2 pretty tiny run chases in the palm of their hands, and they have limped over the line in both. And it's going to cost them if they don't win in this game. They have to win to guarantee to go through. Lose, and you've got to think they're out.
Sri Lanka might have a big injury for this game. I don't know what the latest is on Kamira, the guy that we backed for man of the match in the last game. He looked to do his ankle to me. Whether or not he plays or not, is there any word? Do we know?
Yeah, he's been ruled out of the tournament. They've replaced him already. The whole tournament, yeah, they've replaced him already.
That's a huge loss for Sri Lanka long term. But for a match against the Netherlands, I mean, they're favourites here at 1.15. They should still be beating the Dutch, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll win this game, Steve. As I said on Tuesday when we previewed Sri Lanka against UAE, I didn't think Sri Lanka were that bad against Namibia. They were just naive with the bat. Irresponsible, actually, would be the word I use with the bat. Nobody guided that innings through to the conclusion that they wanted. That all changed on Tuesday, didn't it? Pathan Nasanka, he wasn't getting out for love nor money until the slog overs. Let everyone else bat around him. His intent was just go right through the innings. If they had that in the first game, they'd have won both their matches right now, and they'd already be qualified. But as we've mentioned right throughout this, we're quite happy for them to come second in this group.
The Dutch themselves, then, they've had 2 wins, and I almost feel a little bit sorry for them. If they lose this game, they're probably going to get knocked out, which is a bit of a shame from their perspective. But I mean, I think it's a little bit of a surprise they've won 2 games, really, isn't it? How have they managed to do it? What's been the strength? The bowling, really?
I mean, it is a surprise that they've won 2 games, and it's not a surprise, isn't it? I mean, they were favourites to beat the UAE, and then, as we mentioned on Tuesday, the fact that they weren't favourites probably helped them against Namibia. Yeah, their bowling has certainly done the damage, hasn't it? I mean, no side scored 125 against them yet, which is handy. Top order's going well, but you get through them top 2, and although everyone below them has had time at the crease, they're just not scoring runs, are they, those people? And if anything, the pitch is just dying and dying and dying, and they can't get the ball off the square. They've limped over the line twice, and that's why they're in danger. That's why this is a knockout game for both teams.
The problem with this pitch here, this stadium here in Geelong, it's not, as we said before, it's not a cricket stadium. It's not a cricket surface. It's going to be a drop-in pitch again. And I actually think the second drop-in pitch played better, but the outfield continues to be really, it just doesn't race along the outfield, does it? We were on the under 4s the other day, and that comfortably came in. It actually seems easier, as mad to say, easier to hit a 6 and a 4 on this stadium. And I think that's perhaps what you're leaning towards in your first bet here, which is total match runs under 295.5. That's a 3-unit selection at Bet365. So take us through your reasoning for this one.
Yeah, I've no idea where this line's come from, Steve, because apart from the first innings on this pitch on Sunday when Namibia scored 160, and even then they had to slog their way in the last 5 overs to get anywhere near that. I think Sri Lanka made 152 against UAE, and the rest of the scores have barely been a run of ball 120. So this line's massive. You've just highlighted 2 perfect reasons. The pitch isn't coming onto the bat, therefore players have got to completely lose their shape to hit the ball big. And when you lose your shape, more often than not, the ball goes up straight up in the air rather than where you want it to go. The ones that are timing it, if we look at Nasanka on Tuesday, hit very few boundaries, very few over the ropes. He was just more than happy to pick up 1s and 2s, and that's the sort of modus operandi here on this ground. So that in itself is one thing. The other thing, Steve, you can't get away from the fact that these 2 have played twice in T20 World Cups in the past. One of them was in the 2014 World Cup. I'm not sure exactly how relevant it is, but the Netherlands were shot out for less than 40 in that one. And then last year, which is much more relevant because there's so many more players involved today that were there last year, the Netherlands scored 44 in Sharjah, a small ground, with probably the best batting wicket out in that part of the world. So they don't go well against Sri Lanka. Why don't they go well against Sri Lanka? Well, they just cannot play mystery spin. It's not a criticism of them. It is something that all of we'll call them second-tier sides, struggle with because they don't come up against it very often. They don't come up against it often enough. You look back at that 2014 tournament, Ajanta Mendes took 3 for spit. And last year, when Indu Hasaranga took 3 for spit, they just don't come up against it very often. And if you look at this tournament, they've not played spin particularly well. I mean, the spinners got UAE back into the game against them earlier in the tournament, and Schultz, the Namibia spinner, he bowled 4 tidy overs against them as well. It's just the way it is. Sri Lanka are definitely going to bowl 2 mystery spinners at them, and as you mentioned, with Chamira out, it might be that they decide to sling a 3rd one in there. They might go with like for like and put Lahiru Kimura in, but he himself took 3 for 7 in that game last year. So they don't get on very well against Sri Lanka, the Netherlands, and it's only really the top 3 in the scoring runs for them. If Netherlands bat first, you've got to think that we might even struggle for 195.5 in this game, let alone 295.5.
Yeah, so by my maths, if the first innings here is 144, then this bet is in, whatever happens. So, but there's so many different ways you can get end with under 295.5 runs. Even if the first innings was a large one, the second innings might be a collapse. So,
well, that's it, because it's a must-win game, isn't it? So let's say the most likely way this loses is that Sri Lanka put up a big score, and then the Netherlands bat second. But they're going to have to chase that score down. There is no managing the run rate or any of that nonsense, which could come up in the next game. They have to chase it down. So they're going to have to go hell for leather against a bowling attack that they can't go particularly well on. So even if Sri Lanka do bat first and they do put up the biggest score in the games that have been here so far, say 175. There's still no guarantees that chasing that 175 down, that the Netherlands get 120. So whichever way the toss goes here, I don't really think it's that important. I just don't see this line getting covered at all. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that this line's a Hobart line, not a Geelong line.
Does seem a bit on the high side, doesn't it? And I think the worst way to win this was if someone puts up 145 first and the chasing team would get to 145 and then smash a 6. That'd be horrific, wouldn't it? So, but I think it's just based on this. I don't think there'll be that many runs either, to be honest with you. One final second bet for the game for you, and it's a performance bet. You've been doing well on the performance markets in this Cricket World Cup. I'm not even sure if you had a losing performance bet yet. I don't think you have. A bet 365, and you're going with Hasaranga, 42 over 42 and a half performance points. This seems to me a little bit high because he's only a bowler, isn't he?
He can bat. He bats at 7, so I guess you could argue he's not what we've been referring to throughout this tournament as a 3D cricketer. He's probably not that in terms of the fact that where he'll bat, and he might not even get to bat in this game. But he's one of those mystery spinners. For me, I've said it before, I think he's the best leg spinner in T20 cricket right now. He got an IPL deal. He would have been in the 100, but for the fact that Sri Lanka didn't let him go over because they wanted him to prepare for the Asia Cup, which is completely understandable. He was the leading wicket taker in this tournament last year as well. For me, he's the top spinner in the world at the minute. As I just mentioned, the Netherlands do not play mystery spin particularly well. He doesn't open the bowling, so there's a good chance that by the time he comes on, he'll be going at the middle order. We've seen that middle order absolutely flounder throughout this competition. Would not surprise me in the slightest, Steve, if he takes 3 wickets. I still think we'll get this covered with 2 wickets because he always fields in key positions. He's like the star of Sri Lanka cricket right now. And usually your star players are fielding in the busiest positions. So he may well get a catch out in the deep as well. And it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he bats. If Sri Lanka do bat first, he's probably the slogger of the team. So it might be that they lose a wicket in, I don't know, 17th or 18th over, and they stick him in just to try and maximise their 20 overs. If he does bat, would only really need 3 runs because I'm pretty confident he'll take 2 wickets. If he doesn't take 3, but like I said, he took 3 wickets in 3 overs against the Netherlands last year. And I'm certainly not seeing any evidence that this Netherlands batting lineup is any better this year. And also the fact that whenever these two sides meet, generally the county cricketers are playing county cricket, not for the Netherlands, so they won't have seen too much of Hasaranga. His performance is there. If he bats for any long period, he'll definitely cover, but I still think he covers just with what he does with the ball and in the field. So I'm happy to take the over here.
Oops, I was on mute there. When you talk about mystery spin, what exactly do you mean by that? Because, I mean, are we talking sort of Sherlock Holmes sort of thing here? Because it's like exactly what would it be classed as?
Well, you won't. Thankfully, we've not got Dr. Watson at the other end, so that's one good thing about it. Mystery spins. You've got 2 types of spinners, Steve. You've got finger spinners and you've got wrist spinners. So wrist spinners are the mystery spinners, and why are they such? It's because as you're the batsman and you're standing there facing, and bearing in mind the bowler's 22 yards away from you anyway, the first thing you see when the bowler will go into his delivery stride, he will be hiding the ball with the front of his wrist. So you're not going to see the ball, you'll see the wrist. And you'll only pick up the ball slightly later. And because you're picking it up slightly later, if you're not used to playing it, you'll have less time to work out what it's going to do. And the best mystery spinners always pitch the ball in an area where the batsmen have to come forward to the ball, therefore taking less time for them to do it. And if you're not used to it and you don't pick which way the ball spins, and it does spin, they'll either catch your outside edge, in which by you've got the keeper, and I would imagine Hasaranga's going to bowl to a slip throughout this game, or it'll turn the other way. It'll miss your bat completely, and because you're not confident, you've not got anywhere near outside the stumps, so you're just going to be pinned LBW. And then there's others who just think, fuck it, we'll have a good old whazz at it, just in the hope that we get one off the middle of the bat. You never do. They always come off the top edge, straight up in the air, and then you've got a catch there. So if you can't read it, and it's not a slight on these Netherlands players, they're just not used to it, then you're in trouble. As opposed to the finger spinners, whose who bowl with the ball in front of their hand and then use their fingers to turn the ball, you can always see that. And if you read the hand properly, you'll see which way they turn their hand, so you'll know whether the ball is going to come into you or away from you. You still got to play it, but you've got more. You'll see the ball all the way down, so you've got more time to play it, and that's why the mystery spinners tend to do better than the finger spinners.
That's a great explanation, I must say, Kev. So let's move on to the top batsman market then. No official picks here, but the Dutch top batsman. Interesting one here. For those who follow the outright pick we had, Max O'Dowd, I think he's got a 6-run lead heading into this game. So if the Netherlands were to lose and then get knocked out, hopefully he will end up the top run scorer. But is there anyone in this lineup that you think might go particularly well in this game? Can any of these guys play spin a bit better?
No, I don't think so, Steve. I would probably go with O'Dowd again, just because he's less likely to come up against the classy spinners. You would imagine that. I mean, this has been a new ball pitch, really, hasn't it? So you would imagine that Sri Lanka will bowl their seamers early doors, and the rest of them. I mean, like you say, we've got a 6-run lead on the leader. I think it's 9-run lead on Vikramjit Singh. But after the leader, really, no one's looked. Well, it ain't looked like they can get the ball off the square, have they? So I wouldn't go any deeper than that. You could take your pick of those three. For me, as I've said all through it, O'Dowd's a quality operator, and I'd go with him.
Same thing in terms of Sri Lankan batsmen. If Patanisanka, I mean, he must be clear in their market now by quite a few runs, I'd imagine. If they do get knocked out, there's a good chance that we'll be cashing in on him. Hopefully we don't get knocked out, because we're on Sri Lanka outright as well. But, I mean, he did look the class act, obviously, the other day, and no surprise to see him the favourite here. Again, I suppose if Sri Lanka were to bowl first and skittle the Dutch, then you can't really look outside the top three.
No, I think the value here would be Kusal Mendis. The Netherlands aren't going to go in with a spinner very early, are they? They haven't done that in their first 2 games. They're not going to change their way now. They're going to open up with Klaassen and one of the other seamers, Van Beek or Van Meekeren. Kusal Mendis is pretty comfortable against the seamers. So, and obviously, if it is a short chase, he'll be the one who will be swinging from the hip, whereas Nasanka will just look to bat the innings through. So, I mean, if I was picking in the market, I'd be picking for Mendis, but you've just highlighted why I'm not getting involved in either of them. One thing I would say, though, the 4th man down on that list, Dishanka Gunalatika, he's been ruled out of the tournament, so there's no value in him.
He's gone then as well. So a bit of a bruising period for Sri Lanka in terms of injuries. Final recap then for this game, Kev. We've got, like I say, a couple of bets here under 295.5 runs, and that's a bet 365. And we're going to do Hasaranga Performance over 42.5, also at bet 365. Both picks over 3 units. Just racking my brains. Is there a way that the Dutch could actually lose this game and still qualify for Namibia win or not?
No.
Don't think. No,
their run rates. Their run rates that bad that.
So it's basically win or nothing. If they lose, they're in the hands of the UAE, aren't they? So
yeah,
interesting one. Okay, so but you're predicting you think Sri Lanka get the job done here and get what they need.
Yeah, and even if they don't, I don't think the Dutch put up 150 anyway. So the main bets, they're good.
Yeah. Thanks very much for watching. Appreciate it. Do hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube, and we'll see you very soon for the preview for the second match on Thursday, which is Namibia against the UAE. Catch you very soon.